Well, good morning, friends. Bill here. Hope you're having a good week. I'm excited today to have Carlos and Sarah with us today. He's going to be teaching the Greek class, the Greek intensive at this summer's George Whitefield Summer Fellowship Conference. We've wanted to do this for a couple of years. Greek, learning the language is one of those things that you kind of always desire to do when you're out, I guess, all guys in ministry, especially when you're out evangelizing. It seems to be a very intriguing way to learn the Bible in Greek. So excited this year that Carl is going to join us, and we're going to bring him on and learn about him and how he got into Greek and what he's doing right now. Carlo, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. Great to be with you all.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So we just talked about it, but that's a nice office. Tell us where you are and what you're doing.
Thank you. Yes, sir. So I'm a PhD student at the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky, the Southern Baptist Convention's flagship seminary. I did my MDiv here and I'm now a PhD student. And I get the privilege of working for the president here in the president's office as his research director. And so I get an office to read and write for him and for myself and kind of pour out here in that way. So, yeah, very thankful to be with you guys.
Well, cool. So, of course, Dr. Moeller, he's a legend in many ways. So, tell us, how did you get? Well, first of all, what do you do as the researcher? What are you doing for him? What does he say? You do this for me because I can't do it. What is it?
That's right. Yeah. So I basically manage the things he reads, the things he writes, and the things he reads and writes about things he's reading. This is sort of how I describe it jokingly. But I help him with his book projects. So I help to do research for maybe upcoming books or help to suggest potential content we've already done that could be turned into books. So whether that's briefing episodes or interviews or lectures he's done. And then I also help oversee a team of interns. And they help us with researching for speaking engagements, if he's preaching somewhere, if he's giving a set of lectures, these kinds of things. And then I also oversee his library. So he has 55,000 books. So I manage those. I try to keep order to the disorder.
Really?
And I try to have a little bit of fun with it too and help to host folks when they come to visit us on campus, show them around, show them the various treasures he's been able to acquire throughout church history that are now collected in his library and present those things, care for them, steward them, and keep some order to him.
That's pretty amazing. So you're like the gatekeeper for him?
In some ways, I guess, yeah. In some ways, more. I think I'm a help. So some days I function as a book manager. Other days I function like a researcher. Other days I function like whatever he needs is basically how it works out. Yeah.
So are you the primary person who preps him for the radio show?
I'm actually not. So there's a team of us. There's my counterpart, Graham Faulkner, is his communications director. He primarily focuses on producing the briefing, producing Thinking in Public, one of our programs that's an interview format on books that have been released. And then in the library, our new long-form podcast, which is a sit-down format interview with basically anyone he wants to come in. So we kind of had this idea of, hey, what would be the conversations you would have maybe late night in your study, in your library? How can we let people into those conversations? So Graham Faulkner primarily oversees that, and I oversee more of the written and writing. But like any good team, we help each other, and he helps me with my stuff. I help him with his, and we just try to make sure that the church is blessed by Dr. Moore's work. Dr. Moore has what he needs, and that the seminary is built up through our work. So,
just a couple of questions.
Yeah.
This is intriguing. So one on the library.
Yes, sir.
55,000. These are his personal books.
They're his personal books. Yeah, he is diligently obsessed to these things, to reading, and I think there's just a nag within him that if there's an argument out there he hasn't read, he has to get his hands on it and have it close at hand so that either he reads it tonight or he knows if he gets some time he's going to get to it. And he's just constantly in this mode. So,
has he read every book?
He has read almost every book. Some of them are reference works. He has some old Bibles, some old, institutes, some old theology books. Those volumes are more for fun, and more the idea that this has shaped the church and once was in the hands of a faithful messenger before us, and now he has a hold on it. So those books don't get perused and marked up with the red flare pen like he does to others. But if he hasn't read it, he plans to, and it's in a pile where it's going to get devoured at some point here, hopefully soon. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yes, sir.
So in your position, I'm not trying to ask for secrets of the kingdom.
Yeah,
But
I understand.
what do you see that I notice there's so much in life. I'll save the sermon on it. But what do you
Yeah.
see the way that the whole operation works? What makes it work that we wouldn't notice that would be really helpful for us to understand? In other words, are there things that you've learned by being there that you say, hey, other pastors, ministers, evangelists, this is something that would be helpful for them to learn? What would that be?
Yeah, I think the main thing that I come away with when serving with Dr. Moeller is that he is excellent at what he does, but he's particularly excellent at quite a few things.
Yeah,
And so in many ways, I like to think of him like an expert generalist. He is a scholar in many ways. There are certain fields where he excels in and is at the expert level. But there's also multitudes of areas where he is just at the cusp of being able to communicate with anyone in that field.
yeah,
What that does for him is it allows him to be in rooms and to glean from others. So if you watch, for example, his programs like Thinking in Public or In the Library or listen to the briefing, what you'll notice is he likes to get in those conversations because he learns from them.
I got
So
you.
he does learn from their books, he does learn from their writings and from listening to them. But then once he can get in a conversation, he gets those footholds that allow him to communicate with people at this level, whether it's a constitutional lawyer or a scholar in their biblical field or an archaeologist or even like some far out there feminist theologian or these kinds of things. He can get in their mind just enough so that he can communicate at that level. I think as pastors, I've taken inspiration from that because we're often pastoring people who are in various fields. We're pastoring moms with little kids. We're pastoring widows that have had many lives before. We're pastoring mechanics and blue collar workers that are getting dirty with their hands, working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, never seeing the sun,
Yeah,
apart from the glimmers underneath the hood.
yeah,
And we're also pastoring finance accountants and these kinds of things. So being a generalist is not a demeaning thing. In many ways, it can be a high aspiration. And I think also is he just commits himself to this work as a calling. So this is not a clock in, clock out for him. He does this full force. What you see is him actively preparing all the time for the work he's doing. He does have some rest time, like anyone should have, and takes advantage of those things and enjoys it. But he really does pour himself out for this work and for the building up of the church, and he's glad to do it.
that's interesting. Were you? That's really interesting. What do you think? Like, as a Preston Seminary, what is his primary skill? Is he just must be really smart, academically smart? He must
Yeah,
have.
he's certainly very intelligent. I think probably the primary skill that he has is a commitment to figuring things out. That seems simple,
Yeah,
but it really is. It's a diligence to say, okay, if I have a hole, I need to make sure that I either know what's happening there or I have somebody I can trust who knows what's happening there. And there's just a constant, I can see impulse in him to not let anything go.
gotcha.
And I think that's what makes him successful. Is he is high caliber himself personally. He's very intelligent. He's an autodidact. He's very well read, not only being obviously a PhD himself, but also in other realms which he was not trained in. But he's just a commitment to saying, "Hey, what's happening over there? Why is this way?" In all aspects of life. I think pastors, even evangelists, know this. That's what they're doing in apologetics.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do in our family. So yeah, I think that's what makes him excel.
Like just constant research. That's what it
That,
is.
that's right. He is a student of the two books that
Yeah,
God has written. He studies the Word and he studies the world, and he is
that's funny.
very astute to each of them. Yeah, that's right.
That's funny. That's history. Oh, well, cool. Last question on the on your work here. Who
Yeah,
is the most intriguing or interesting person you've met being there?
yeah. I'm trying to think of that. I can just go with most recent. I was just in California for the Shepherds Conference, and I got to meet Michael Reeves, who
Yeah,
is
I know.
in England, and was just impressed both by his intellect, his scholarship, his preaching, and his team's humility, kindness, and graciousness towards me. I was just in a small, more casual setting with them, just on a work trip, and they were very kind to ask about my work and what I'm doing, and just treated me like a brother. And that's always a very encouraging thing to experience. So I was very thankful for that time.
Oddly enough, I went to seminary to school. I've got a graduate diploma in theology from.
Wow, do you?
It was
From
Wales Evangelical School of Theology when I
wow,
started, and
wow.
then he got involved, and
Okay,
I said, "Hey, something's going on here beyond just."
absolutely.
We were over there in Bridgend, Wales, which is middle of nowhere. So yeah,
Right,
he's
right.
pretty amazing what he's done on
Yeah,
the scene. So good.
absolutely.
Amen. Cool. Tell us about you.
Yeah.
Where you're from, ultimately, I want to see it. What was the road that took you to have a great interest in Greek? But start at the beginning. What's your sort of testimony?
Yeah, so I was born in Fort Myers, Florida, uh, to my parents who both loved me and cared for me. I lived primarily with my mom. My parents were divorced, but my dad would take me to a Baptist church on the weekends, and I was basically raised Catholic, but also would attend a Baptist church. And so in that time, I would attend Sunday school at a Baptist church, these kinds of things. I also played baseball. And one day we were playing baseball against a team, and the coach was a Baptist pastor in the area. And we were looking at switching churches, my dad was. And so we started going to his church on Sundays when I was with my dad. And through that time, I also became to go on like various youth conferences they would take the kids on, these kinds of things, go to youth group, this kind of stuff. And the youth pastor there just started teaching the Bible. He would very simply open the Bible, explain it to us. He was a Northland Bible grad, if that means anything to you.
Yeah.
So, kind of in the fundamentalist streams, but very evangelical fundamentalist streams, just loved the Bible. Him and his dad both were shaped by fundamentalism, but then also loved John MacArthur and these kinds of works. Kind of a common stream for him. So you
Yeah.
can imagine exactly what I was getting. I was getting pure Bible exposition. He would explain it to us, and then he would spend a lot of time with us. And through that, I just started reading the Bible. I was encouraged to read the Bible, so I did. I was encouraged to repent and believe in the gospel, and I heard that over and over again. And finally, it just clicked for me. I actually never had a time when I didn't think I was a Christian. So growing up Catholic, I believed I was a Christian. I went through all the things. I actually quite enjoyed kind of the regular rhythm of the Catholic Church, and it felt very holy to me and these kinds of things. But I found kind of like Augustine talks about in his Confessions, I couldn't stop sinning, and I actually enjoyed sinning and sinned so much that like I would realize I would even surprise myself in the ways I would sin. So I remember in one particular time taking the Lord's name in vain in a pretty serious and egregious way, and yeah, being shocked by it, being shocked even that I would use those terms. And so the Bible slowly convicted me more and more. The more I read it, the more I grew to love it. The more I realized, as some have said, it was reading me, even as I was reading it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was convicted of my sins and realized I needed to be baptized. So I was baptized in that church by that pastor, the senior pastor there, who actually became my father-in-law later, and grew up in that youth group. Was given opportunities to teach little bits here and there in the youth group, and then was able to preach even a few times in our Lord's Day gathering before coming to seminary. And in that time, just wrestled with a calling to ministry. I loved my youth pastor, so I thought I want to be a youth pastor. And a little bit at a time, I realized maybe I don't want to necessarily be a youth pastor, but I definitely want to preach. I definitely want to teach, and I loved it. And so then it was, how do I get as quickly somewhere that I could be trained for this? So how can I get training? So I didn't have any money, so I went to a state school for undergrad because I had some scholarships that would cover it, and tried to make the most of that with college ministry, and that was a blessing to me. But then just realized through saving up and trying to find situations here at Southern, I realized I could get to seminary, and I had a little bit of margin that I could make it work. So we moved here. My wife and I were married in 2020, and we moved to Southern Seminary shortly after that, about 6 months, and started pursuing ministry here and pursuing studies. And in that, I got some good advice early on. I kind of had these impulses early, but got some good advice. Focus on the main things. If you're going to come to seminary, get the things you can't get anywhere else. Get your exegesis down, get your church history down, get your languages down. So if you're going to explain the Bible to people for the rest of your life, do as much as you can in the text and with those that have interpreted it before you. So I tried to find the theology professors I could that were deep in the weeds, and so I went with them. I tried to find the church history professors that were deep in the weeds, and I went with them. And then I dug into the languages. So I put myself through the grueling life of an adult trying to learn a language that you just learned intuitively as a kid,
Yeah.
and it was a blessing to me. So I learned first Greek under Rob Plummer. He's my now
Yeah.
PhD
Sure.
supervisor,
Yeah.
and he made it both a grueling and enjoyable experience. He would set the trajectory for us. He'd tell us, next Thursday, you need to know this.
Yeah.
And then he would encourage us the whole way. And then we'd get there and he'd say, okay, I'm going to test you on this. Next Thursday, you need to know this. And we just did that year after year. So I've now spent a little bit over 4 years really in Greek, studying Greek. under Rob Plummer and Dr. Tom Schreiner. And I spent also some time with Caspar Oslins, who has a PhD in linguistics from UCLA and is also a master's seminary grad. And he walked us through even more advanced Greek. I would never say I mastered advanced Greek grammar, though I took that course, but I definitely was stretched beyond what I had before. So I think that's just what I found is coming here to learn Greek and Hebrew. What I've done is I've put myself in places where I had to learn it. I signed up for a course where I had to show up and someone would look me in the eyes and ask to give an answer. And even if I did it faultily, that was still better than what I would have done on my own. And so I've seen that benefit my ministry. I've seen it benefit my preaching, benefit my theology, benefit my understanding of church history, and it's really built up my faith too.
So on the Greek part, what is it in studying Greek that I get really two questions. The first one is, what has come from it that you did not anticipate? That's been good. That's been a good thing.
Yeah. A few things I did anticipate were I anticipated would help me to engage the Greek, the scriptures more faithfully. I didn't anticipate two things in particular. One would be the great devotional value it would bring. So having to slow down to understand what's happening, really word by word, very early on. What is this word? And asking who's the subject, who's the object, these kinds of things. It felt like at first grasping in the dark, but what I found was it forced me to meditate on the text. So by the time I figured out what was happening, I had spent a long time thinking about this verse. And so as I went slowly through it, I'd find my heart warmed to the scriptures, reminded of these things, even as the Spirit cried out with my spirit that I was a child of God as I was in the scriptures. And then the second thing is I wasn't expecting how much it would help me read commentaries. So I don't know if anyone's had this experience, but I've often read commentaries, and you read, for example, one commentator say, this verse means this thing. And he says it just like that. No reference to contrary opinions, no discussion, no footnotes, no explanation of different views. This means this thing. Then you read another commentator, and they do the exact same thing in a different direction. And both of them tie it to some Greek aspect or some Greek verb or some Greek parsing or some Greek, this is how the Greeks did it.
Yeah, yeah.
And you have no way to weigh that because they've not provided you any work to weigh that. And you don't have the knowledge to be able to weigh that. So what do? If you don't know Greek, some of the best ways would be just to sort of set that aside both ways, or to find someone who at least lays out the work for you. If we're honest, what we often do is we basically just go with the guy we trust or like the most. So if John MacArthur's our guy,
Oops. All right, we'll come back. Hang on a second. Let's see here. Hang on a second. Hang on, friends. We'll see what happened here. There we go.
can you hear me?
Yeah.
Right.
All right, keep going. Keep going.
Yeah. So the second thing that I learned from Greek that was particularly helpful is I found that I was able to engage in commentaries and I was able to read them and actually weigh what they were arguing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when they were starting to engage with the Greek text, I was actually able to weigh their opinions. So I'm not perfect and I'm not a Greek expert, but I can definitely know at the surface level when someone's trying to pull something over on me. So if they're making more of something that they should not make more of, that they haven't nuanced enough, I know that on the surface and I can say, they're doing too much there. Or if they make a case for, hey, this word is functioning this way because of these reasons, and another author says this word is functioning this way for these reasons, I can actually weigh that. I can have a little debate with myself on a Word document and come up with my own conclusion. What that does is I can come to the pulpit and I can declare the word of God with confidence because I've actually weighed these things. I've wrestled with the text. I've engaged that level. And of course, guys do this in English too. You have a friend who portrays the scriptures a certain way, and you say, no, I don't think that because verse 5 says this, which means this must hang on verse 3, which must hang on verse 2. You're doing the same thing, but it allows you, when commentators are doing things in Greek, to be able to actually weigh them once you know what they're arguing and whether or not their argument has something to stand on, and then able to weigh their arguments with what you already know.
Do you find that there's a lot, it appears to be so, a lot of variation in interpretation of the Greek?
So I find, sorry, do you mean particularly of what the text is itself, or kind of how to interpret it?
How to interpret it? So there seems to be,
Yeah.
is it helpful? Like, are you, like for someone like us, you're stepping into Greek, it's like another forest to figure out. Do you find there's a lot of variation or just a couple of variations that you encounter in the sense of interpretation of what the Greek is saying?
Yeah, I think there's always, in any field, there's going to be wide interpretation in some sense. But I will say, within the world of those of us who agree about the scriptures in their inerrancy and their infallibility and these kinds of things, I don't think there's a wide marsh. So let me give you a small example. Sometimes people will say things like, okay, I'm reading a commentary. Okay, is this a purpose clause or a result clause? Meaning, did God do something for the purpose that or with the result that? And then they'll give you a whole paragraph. And there's been many times when I'm in a class with Dr. Schreiner, and he'll say, is this a purpose or a result? And some guys will say, purpose, purpose, and he'll say, result, result. He's like, yeah. I mean, it could be both, couldn't it? I mean, if God purposed it, it could also result in this. I don't think it's that deep. Yeah, so there's some of that. But there are other things. So, for example, in questions of complementarianism, egalitarians will make a lot about headship being source versus authority or rank or role. So if kephale, for example, the word for head, is like the wife comes from the husband, and it's sort of this mutual coming from and giving to, mutual submission that they're arguing for, versus those of us from a complementarian perspective saying, hey, no, what we're arguing here is that kephale has some authority, these kinds of things. So there are debates there, but then what are you doing? You're actually arguing at the level of how kephale is used, how that word is used. You're arguing for how that author uses that word. And then you're doing just what any good exegete does. You're looking at the context right surrounding it, and you're saying, does that reading of that particular word's usage, I put scare quotes around that because sometimes people will say things like, this word means this. And sometimes that's true, but often you can hide a lot of your argument under this word means this without having to show your work. So you want to see someone show their work so you can actually weigh it. So there are disagreements, but I think within particularly evangelical circles, you're going to see that there's significant agreement about what the meaning actually results in. But it does help you, for example, in following an argument to know the Greek text and to see what they're actually hanging their position on.
Okay, so a pastor of mine back at Church of Boston, Atlanta, he actually teaches evangelism at RTS in Atlanta.
Yep.
Yeah, early on he said, Bill, you need to study languages. And I thought, isn't English good enough? And
Yeah.
a lot of variations in English. So my real question is, do you find that that studying the Greek gives you a more clear, like in other words, that the English translation has a limitation, and coming into the Greek provides a deeper understanding of the text? Or what does it? How does it differentiate us from just saying, "I'm just going to read it in English"? In other words, you make an
Yeah.
argument, spend the time, etc. What
Yeah.
would your argument be to do that?
Yeah. So the argument for why you should spend the time even doing it?
Yeah, as
Yeah.
opposed to really be good at the English text. Is there a problem with the English text? That kind of thinking.
That's right.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think the first thing I always want to say is our English translations are excellent, and we have an embarrassment of riches with our English translations. And they are trustworthy. You can see in them the reasons they're doing it. They're all backed by very sound biblical scholars. Now, there's some that are bad, but I would just call them not translations. So something where it's like a paraphrase. But I'm talking about your real ones. I'm talking about your King James, your NKJV, your NASB, even most of your NIV that have concerns with the TNIV, your ESV, your CSB. Go down the list. I'm not intentionally leaving any out there. But those English translations, those that would be in our churches, the churches we attend,
Yeah.
they're good English translations. And you can see the rub with Greek when you compare them to one another. You can tell they're making different positions, and any good study Bible will tell you some of those things. So I would be careful to say that Greek is like some secret code. Okay, so I don't want it to be like some Gnostic depiction of until you know the Greek, you don't have the real Bible. We,
Right.
of course, know this isn't true. One, for the fact that the Old Testament was translated into Greek, and that was good for those in that day. They still read the Hebrew, they didn't set that aside, and that was obviously their authoritative text in some sense. But they had no qualms with doing that. And the Hebrew itself even changed over time. And there was no qualms about that. God's word was not going to be lost because he's faithful. He's an active participant in history. He didn't just wind up the clock of our scriptures, drop them from heaven, and then say, good luck. He providentially and sovereignly cares for us even through his word. So I'd be careful in that way. However, I would also say, in addition, maybe not however, the Greek helps you to be able to, again, know what the arguments are being had. So when you see your translation, I know why the ESV chose to do it this way. So I know that they're translating this, say, participle in a adverbial way, which leads to this interpretation. Good translations try to do as little of that as they can and allow the exegete to actually make the determination and preach it that way. So here's a good example. And some guys don't like this. In certain places, they do it, and they don't always do it consistently. But the ESV, for example, in my experience, oftentimes translates participles with the ing ending. So running, walking, speaking, these kinds of things. What that does is, as an exegete in English, you can make the determination: is this by speaking? Is this after speaking? Is this, go down the list? There actually is an allowance for you there, not to read into the text something that's not there, but to use the text around it to help you to understand the particular verse you're exegeting, the particular verse you're explaining to your people. And it allows you to have the freedom to not be bound by a decision that maybe wasn't crystal clear just by the word itself, if that makes sense. There are times when it does seem to be pretty crystal clear, and exegetes and even translators try to make those determinations. But what the Greek text does, and your understanding of it, even at a, say, year long level, is to be able to have what Dr. Palmer likes to call the smell test. You're reading a commentary or you're translating and you look at a particular translation and something just smells off. And you said that just can't be because of this. They've made too much out of this and these kinds of things. And it helps you to ground it. It also helps you significantly in apologetics. So I'm quite aware I'm speaking to a lot of street preachers and evangelists whom I love, and I'm nothing in terms of my labors compared to you all, but I've done enough to know I'm walking on a college campus, I'm sharing the gospel, I'm street preaching, and what do I get? But I get arguments from the Greek from people who've never cracked open the Greek New Testament. And all it took me was one semester of Greek to be able to dismantle Jehovah's Witness standing right there before me and just say, hey, can we stop talking about the word was a God, and can we just actually go to the heart of the matter? Because we can all agree that the word there does not mean a God. It's crystal clear if that he was with God and was God. So this is crystal clear. So one, you don't know Greek and you heard this from the Watchtower Society. But number two, once I show this to you, can we get to the heart of the matter? What the scriptures actually say in other places, for example, as well. So that's where it's really helpful as well. It's helpful interpreting with Muslims. They often will bring up the Greek text and they may not know it, but if you just have a surface level amount of knowledge, you can get, as you guys often know, you can get over that first step. So you're often dancing when you're doing evangelism in some ways. And if you know a little bit of Greek, you can get away from that dance because you can say, hey, man, number one, you don't know what you're talking about. Number two, I don't know as much as I should know, but I know enough to know you don't know what you're talking about. Can we just talk about the things we both know a lot about? And it allows you to do that shift too. And I think that's particularly helpful. It keeps you from strange doctrines.
Gotcha. It just seems to give you a support, a deeper understanding that sort of leavens the whole of your scriptural study and ministry, right? That's kind of the way you describe it.
I think that's right.
To a deeper, I think everybody would agree that, well, not everybody, but the Greek Bible came first,
Yeah,
the Greek
right.
language. And so that's coming back more to the source of it all.
That's right.
That's really cool. I can ask you 1,000 questions. I know your time is limited. Let me get to this. So when teaching the intensive,
Yep.
and if you could just give a context of
Yeah.
your perspective on taking 5 days, what to get
Yeah.
out of it, and
Yeah.
how this works in the long run for really
Yeah.
committing a lifetime of study, shall we say, to study the Bible in Greek.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I hope the intensive is equally intense and fun for us. But one of the hardest things about language learning is quitting. So I tell all the elementary students I grade for a Greek class here on campus, and often have more communications with them, and they'll come to me lamenting, and I can see the look in their eyes that I saw in my own eyes. I can feel the rottenness in their bones that I felt in my bones. And I just tell them, look, the only losers in this are the quitters. You can have guys who I will see, they will ace exams, they will ace quizzes, and they never touch their Greek New Testament again. So they're the losers. They've given up. So what you also have to do in language learning is really give yourself to the rigor, but also find ways to enjoy it and delight in it. Do it as unto the Lord. We don't have to always do that, obviously, but some of us recognize that we can do that more intentionally or unintentionally. So I hope that with this intensive, we will get into learning Greek, dip our toe into really learning how to learn Greek. That's actually one of the major points that comes is you have to learn how to learn a language even as you learn Greek. So I hope to really set us up to have tools for that. And then we'll step through basically what will be the equivalent of a week to 2 weeks of if you were to take an elementary Greek course full on, we're going to do that together. So instead of having homework outside, we're going to do that work in the classroom with direct feedback. And we're going to get you kind of a week to 2 weeks into what would be a full on semester, say, of seminary or a full on year of Bible college Greek. And that will get you in a place where you've learned the tools that if you want to keep going, I can give you a checklist of things that if you take one of these pathways, you can read the Greek New Testament if you commit to it. If you take one of these two pathways, one of these three pathways, some of them being more intense than others, you can get yourself to where you can learn the Greek New Testament with your fellow elders, with your fellow pastors, with your fellow evangelists. And that will be my goal, and us to have a lot of fun doing it. Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome. Well, anything else to share? Well, I guess one more sort of follow up in a sense, and what
Yeah.
we've done is to the intensive and to the study. Once you get into it, you learn this introductory stuff. Is it easier to keep going? Does it? What is the next step? Like, what is the next hurdle you might say you need
Yeah.
to overcome once you get rolling?
Yep. I think that the biggest hurdle is going to be setting up some commitment to starting something right after the intensive ends. So I'm happy to reach out and let you know what those steps would look like. I would just say off the jump, the three best things you could do in order of more intense to less intense, but also more intense to slightly less, or more helpful to slightly less helpful, would be the first one would be right after we finish would be to enroll in a elementary Greek course in the fall semester. So I have recommendations for one. I here at Southern Seminary, I think it's excellent. They will have an online course with Dr. Rob Plummer's videos where you can enroll, and it will be paced. It will keep you on track. It will have resources. If you enroll in the online course, it will include the Greek textbooks with through Logos, which you can keep for life. All these kinds of things. That would be a great step. It will keep you self-paced. It will make sure you have to do things at certain times. It will put you in connection with others who are doing it. If enough of us enroll in the fall, we'll have our own little SFOI kind of cohort
There you go.
in that course, and that would be great. I'd love to even meet with you guys on some phone calls or in person. We could do some of that. That would be excellent. That would be like if you're really committed, you jump in that. That would be your next best step to take a fall class online or a modular if that option is offered. I'm not sure what they're offering in terms of modulars, but certainly online, elementary Greek, and then take a syntax Greek, or they call it First John, I think, now in the spring. If you do that after taking this intensive, you will be set up for success, and you can commit yourself at that point to having the tools to continue on and reading your Greek New Testament. That would be that's the best. That will be the most fun, the most enjoyable, the most bang for your buck. Second option would be basically to buy Dr. Plummer's elementary Greek book, which I'll bring hopefully even a couple of copies to give away. And you just follow along with this self-paced. If you're kind of one of these guys that can just do this, you can do it. There's video links that help you along the way, lectures, these kinds of things. That will be more difficult than option one, but you can do it, and guys could do it that way. The third option would be for a guy to finish it and say, this was great. I loved it. It was a lot of fun. I learned some Greek vocab words. I learned all the things I should not do with my new Greek knowledge, including, best my friends and tell them what the Greek really means about things I have no idea what I'm talking about. It will also give me a little bit of the sniff test to hear a Mormon talk and say, that's not right. and know where to look and say, you know what, that's good enough for me. I might learn a few Greek words. I might pick it up another time, but I've enjoyed it, but I don't have the time for it. That would be great too. And I think that would be a good tool for you. And with that, the book we hope to go through this Greek word studies for everyone that Dr. Plummer has written, along with Dr. Benjamin Merkel, would be a great tool still for you, still for your churches, a great help to you, a help to understand Bible dictionaries and Bible commentaries and kind of the origins of the Greek New Testament. If you leave with that as the third option, there should be no shame with you. You should press on your ministry, and we'd still love to have you. It'd be a lot of fun. But I hope that will set you up for success in any of those three tracks. Yeah, following our intensive.
Well, cool. How many people can make a cohort? Is that possible?
Well, so what typically happens with the online classes, I think it is possible. If we get
Okay.
enough, I can have some conversations. What
Okay.
typically happens in the online courses is there's, I don't know, 150 students,
Yeah.
and then they just digitally section you off into
Okay.
little segments online on the Canvas page, and you're in your own discussion board. You have your own grader, and sometimes a grader has a couple of sections. So often I'll just tell them I'd love as many sections as are available, but I'd be happy to have some conversations there if we get enough of us, and that would be fun.
Cool.
And yeah, I would be happy to have cohort calls, these kinds of things. We can make it work once we see who signs up for the intensive. We can have some conversations of what that might look like.
All right, cool. Cool. Awesome. Colin, thanks so much. What a treat. You certainly stimulated my thinking. That's great. So fantastic.
That's
Great
good.
to be with us today. We look forward to seeing you in June, Lord willing. Keep up the good work.
Amen. Looking forward to being with you guys.
All right, take care. Have a good
All
day.
right. You too. Bye.
That sounds exciting, doesn't it? That's for sure. So, more information coming about the class, or it's on the website, which will be here somewhere when we post this video. So, check it out and sign up. Come study Greek. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Hope to see you June 15 and 19 in the Greek class. Bye-bye.